Welcome, everybody, to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is Kareem, your host, and joined by
David, the co-host, and I think we're rolling here for a Friday. I don't think we have any technical glitches so far, so I hope everybody out there is hanging in there, staying cool. But we'll give you some Microsoft news here to cool you off on your lunch hour or whenever you're watching this.
this is episode 63. It was kind of a light week now that we've wrapped up all of our developer conferences and we're kind of heading into the summer. Some people are going to be taking summer breaks at work. I doubt there's going to be a ton of explosive development news as far as apps and operating systems and AI developments, but there's probably going to be quite a few business developments as far as companies buying other companies or things being licensed out, data centers being erected and things like that. But with that being said, we will be talking about today Slack having a price increase, which is always unfortunate if you're a user of Slack. Doesn't mean that Teams is a place you run to. Some people don't have the luxury of doing that, so you may just have to eat the cost. OpenAI and Microsoft are potentially heading towards war over OpenAI's attempt to become a for-profit company. We thought Elon was the big barrier, but apparently quietly behind the scenes, it was Satya Nadella and Microsoft. So we'll explain some of that. AMD and Microsoft have fallen further in love and announced that, hey, they will continue dating for the foreseeable.
Oh,
Yeah. And there's a little bit tidbit I stashed off the internet earlier today that we may be seeing quick resume come to AMD's or Microsoft power or what AMD powered Microsoft devices, i.e. Windows and gaming, which is again a big
interesting.
it was a big hit that they took from the comparisons with SteamOS. We'll get into that. Windows Hello was turned off in the dark, but it doesn't mean that the entire platform is. It's just security reasons that Microsoft had to shut it down, but they didn't let anybody know about it. So we're going to explain it and bring it to light, pun intended. There's also, unfortunately, some talk about Microsoft layoffs. We've been talking about it. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, but they're laying off 600 people, but this was more in the thousands, and they're being more direct than Google. They're not saying, hey, here's a buyout if you want. This is more like, here out your office, here's a box. We'll also be talking about free games this weekend to try and have a palate cleanser. And we may sandwich that with even more bad news. There was a massive data breach that was reported last night or earlier yesterday. And we'll get into some details about that and our thoughts about the future of the internet if this continues, and also what our own government here in the US is planning to do to make the internet even less safe. So with that being said, let's get into our Slack price increase, shall we?
Let's do it. Let's just, start this off by how companies are going to take more money from people's pockets.
Look at this, got them all choked up, ladies. You can barely get it out.
You can guess the way they're going to do that. They're going to add those two favorite letters we like to talk about in today's world, AI. And they're going to tell you that AI is expensive. And because AI is expensive, guess what? You have to pay more money. We're going to throw in some AI services. It's not a choice. So that's what you're going to do. And that's kind of what Slack has done here. Slack has increased their pricing. The Business Plus plan is now $15 a month with an enterprise plan available. Now, why does Slack do this, and what features have they added to try to entice you to not use the free Slack and give them $15 a month? We have AI agents that are employee facing that will allow your employees to interact with these AI agents in their Slack channels just as if they're employees. So that's an option. We have direct Salesforce connections to allow Salesforce data and Salesforce information available right there in your Slack channel without having to disconnect or change apps or change your focus. So they're hoping putting everything in the Slack app with your Salesforce integrations, if you're using Salesforce, is beneficial enough to also get you to pay the $15 a month. And last but not least, AI to be able to summarize your conversations, summarize your meetings, and you would be able to search through your channels and search through your Salesforce data to, guess what, organize that data and make yourself more productive during your day, during your meetings, etc. Salesforce says contact your account representative to get signed up, and the link is on our website. The link is in the article. You need to scoot over to that link, contact your sales representative to get Slack Business Plus, and wasn't a whole lot of information about the enterprise. I'm assuming that's kind of a niche plan that maybe only a few people need, and maybe it's customized to your company, so you will have to contact them to get information about the enterprise plan. I think most people are still using the free plan, but I learned something this week. There is a business plan or business plus plan, and there is an enterprise plan.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with this other than the fact that they are tagging this with AI. I'm like, these are features I'm sure people wanted. The development of this has probably been in play for a while. The idea that you can take an algorithm to basically search and filter and sort your data isn't AI. This is not nebulous. This is stuff that you can explain to your average user and explain why the price increase is there. It's his business. It's unfortunate. I am becoming tiresome of the idea of, hey, this is the reason for the price increase is AI. Maybe offer these features a la carte if you want to include some of these as opposed to an entire platform increase. Say, hey, if you want, set amount of features, if you need only just the one, here you go for this amount or whatever. I feel like that'd be more user friendly, more economical for businesses than to buy the buffet of AI and only perhaps use one of the things or only a niche thing or whatnot. So, and this applies to Microsoft, Google, Apple, every other company that wants to try and just throw in the bucket of AI to justify quarterly earnings, so to speak.
I know I don't like the way Google did it. It was just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got an email from Google that, hey, we're giving you certain Gemini features in your Gmail account or your workspace account. And, 2 weeks later, here's your price increase for July 1 of 2025. Because we gave you that AI, you get the price increase with it. And I understand we've reached the point to where we've got to put those numbers on the spreadsheet to make the investors happy. We've kind of reached crunch time on that. But I agree with you. I don't like things being, here's a feature that I may never use. But because I don't use it, I get the price increase. Thanks.
Exactly. And like I said, applies to Microsoft. They did this last year, I believe, with Microsoft 365. They were just like, hey, it's going up from $9 to, I forget what the price increase was too. And because of Copilot, I'm like, well, I have it in Windows. Do I also need it for Microsoft 365? Like, I thought I paid my dues by getting the laptop that you guys run the operating system for. You put Copilot in there.
Microsoft did something kind of dirty, and I'm going to have to call it what it is on this. On the 365 accounts, if you want to remove a user, you can. But you pay for that user throughout the term, whether the license is there or not. And that kind of bites. When your term starts, if your company's got 50 people and you reduce to 45, guess what? You're paying 50 for the rest of the term.
Not good, Microsoft. With that being said, maybe this is part of the reason why we get our next story, which is Microsoft and OpenAI getting into a potential conflict. Pretty big one, even though they are $18 billion buddies as far as investments and resources are concerned. News, I believe, from make sure I get the sourcing right for you guys. Wall Street Journal. So pretty legit. The once unshakable partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, the deal that brought generative AI to the forefront, is on shaky grounds. And this is because the two of them are about to lead to a potential legal showdown detailed in the recent Wall Street Journal report, which is the culmination of a bunch of strategic maneuvering by both companies, signaling a fundamental clash over the future of AI and respective roles. At the heart of the dispute lies OpenAI's ambition to transition from a nonprofit to a for-profit. Now, we reported about this months ago that OpenAI has been pushing forward for for-profit status with kind of spinning off their research, what was it called, the nonprofit section, into its own separate business. At the time, there was reporting, and from word, from his own direct mouth, of Elon Musk, who also had, I guess, some involvement with OpenAI, planning to sue OpenAI if they decided to go for profit. And they battled back and forth, a war of words via social media. I think Sam Altman was going back and forth with Elon about the idea of him trying to sue them or whatnot. Eventually, it kind of simmered down, and the two, at least seemingly, either met an accord or just got over it. But OpenAI stepped back from the brink. Now we're finding out, though, that Microsoft and Satya Nadella and co. may have had a much more behind-the-scenes aggressive blockade of this idea. And obviously, for those of you who are following it, there are reasons why Microsoft doesn't want OpenAI to become directly for-profit, because it would potentially hurt their exclusivity, not the business function of it, because the way that their deal is structured is that they get money from OpenAI until OpenAI can pay back I believe the initial investment of about $13 billion or whatnot. So being for profit would obviously speed that up. And that's obviously what OpenAI wants to do, is pay off, their bookie, Microsoft, and get back to making money for themselves and kind of navigating their own future. Microsoft obviously doesn't want that, because apparently, if you had to go by Mark Benioff, who was an often vocal critic of Microsoft doesn't have its own AI platform. It basically resells OpenAI's ChatGPT as Copilot. So the sooner that OpenAI and ChatGPT pull away from Microsoft, as far as needing their resources and their money, Microsoft starts to lose their effective status in the OpenAI wars. What are your thoughts on Microsoft basically pushing OpenAI to this point? Now, they're looking to go legal. Before you stated legal, they're looking to basically have the FTC and other bodies look into their partnership. Now, again, they didn't buy them. They're saying, hey, is Microsoft being anti-competitive with the way they structured this deal? And can you get us out of it?
We knew this marriage was going to break up at some point. That they had they've got their 10-year deal, and we're about halfway through that, give or take.
Something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And OpenAI just keeps pushing things out. They keep changing things. We talked about it a month or so ago. They talked about an operating system powered by OpenAI. They talked about a phone powered by OpenAI. So I think Sam has got big ambitions, and I think part of it is, Microsoft sees the writing on the wall. It could be that OpenAI and Microsoft become competitors at some point in the AI space. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft depends on OpenAI for some of their Copilot features still. We have to remember that OpenAI is part of what drives Copilot. So that can make Microsoft uneasy about the partnership, but Sam's sitting over there going, hey, I've got all these bright ideas, and I think people are going to buy them, or I think I can make some money off of it. We need to change this deal and make it for profit. And Microsoft says, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to stay cozy with us so we don't end up competing. I see this headed for an ugly divorce at some point. And I see both companies having to take a step back in what they're doing, because, yes, there has been some dependent upon each other. So I do think, Copilot may take a step back. Microsoft has to catch it up a little bit in the house, because I think when one dumps the other, it's going to be like being dumped by a bad girlfriend. It's get your stuff out, your stuff's on the porch. we're done, and you go through that period of you've got to rebuild and restart. And I think both companies are going to have to go through that.
Oh yeah, I mean, you basically get the words out of my mouth. I don't really have much more to add other than the fact that if I had to pick winners and losers from the breakup, I think the short-term winner would be OpenAI. I think the long-term winner is going to be Microsoft. And I say that not as a Microsoft fan, but as an idea of that their push for small language models benefits them more. They may not have the extensive AI platform resources and backgrounds as OpenAI, but I believe OpenAI is a much more volatile company. Again, we were just talking last November, not this one that just passed, but the one previous to that, where they had ousted Sam Altman. He was kicked out of the company, and he had backing from Microsoft, and I believe Microsoft had conversations with the board to get him back on. If you separate that to Sam Altman's out on an island by himself, making a bunch of wild predictions and claims similar to Elon Musk, saying, hey, we could do this, we could do that. Meanwhile, he's changing, or not him, but the company's changing and having to recall certain releases and stuff like that. It's not a sure thing as much as Microsoft, as boring as it sounds, Azure and Office are a sure thing. Like, these are just things that you can basically tune your clock by, aside from the outages. I get that. But, they are very stable platforms, and Microsoft is a very stable company. OpenAI is hoovering tons of money and then looking to basically backfill that with resources as far as data centers are concerned, cloud resources or whatnot. I know they signed a big deal with Oracle, but I just don't think the way that this company, as fast as this company is moving and as many changes it's making, that it's found any sustainability whatsoever so far. We don't know. Go ahead.
And you bring that's kind of where I was going with that. They're moving so quickly, and Microsoft is sitting over there, the fourth or fifth richest company in the world. Like, okay, Sam, make your moves. But at the end of the day, the money's going to win. And, if Sam doesn't, Sam loses that investment or any further investments from Microsoft, he better have a product or a really good investor in his back pocket to make that money up. Because I don't know how, OpenAI makes money, but they don't make Microsoft money. And Microsoft knows that.
Well, AI is a feature. It is not a platform. It is not a brand. It is not necessarily a business. It is a feature that uses a certain business model that can be extrapolated. Like, you could have a business and then build on top of it with AI. I doubt that you could do it the other way around, have AI and then build a business around that, just by the way it's implemented so far. Again, this is me being short-sighted and unimaginative at the moment, but for what we use AI for, it's, I think, I forget who the person is, and I wish I could credit them. They have compared it to spell check. It's fun. Definitely useful. We need it when we, text and write emails, things like that. Like, it's hard to, live in an internet world, a digital world where you don't have spell check to help you out. But at the end of the day, you're not sitting there thinking like, man, spell check revolutionized the internet. It revolutionized communications. It made, incoherent sentences better. Like, you're not thinking that, you're just using it. And I feel like we're going to get to that same point with AI. Everyone's going to have it. Everyone's going to have it everywhere. And it's going to be ubiquitous. But is it going to be the thing that, sustains a company into the billions, and trillions? Who knows? That being said, let's get in, and we'll obviously keep you guys updated. So check the website, as further developments surface. We have AMD and Microsoft getting even cozier, if that were somehow possible.
Well, we kind of go from a possible divorce there with Microsoft to, kind of move into a, really good marriage. It's a really tight relationship. Yeah. And that is Xbox and AMD. And Xbox put out a video at the beginning of the week. I think that video was roughly a minute and 17 seconds, but they said a whole lot in that video. Basically, it is a commitment that AMD and Microsoft are going to stay together, and they're going to dive a little deeper and make sure that current and future gaming products are AMD powered, which will ensure that your titles today and your titles of the past and your titles that will be older titles in the future are still compatible and will run with you on the Xbox platform. Now, what made this interesting to me is there were hints of a future Xbox console, future hardware, future consoles were alluded to here in this video. So that kind of told me Microsoft has dove into handhelds, as we have talked about several times here on the podcast. They announced the handhelds at Summer Game Fest 2025 earlier this month. But there is another handheld coming, or is another console coming, another console coming. We're looking at AMD powering the console, plus throwing in the gaming AI agent for helping you with your games. So no Intel for Xbox. Intel, you kind of missed another good opportunity there, which I'm not sure how much Microsoft really wanted to deal with Intel, as so far we have seen everything with the Xbox branding on it for many, many years have big red under the hood AMD. So glad to see the partnership continuing. At least it means gamers don't have to worry about something changing, something not being compatible. Their older Xbox 360 games that they have downloaded from the Microsoft Store, those should still work. So we'll have to see where this goes. I was kind of happy to see this. I'm an AMD fan. I'm an Xbox fan. I like what AMD does in gaming. So happy to see it. I would have loved to have the lady's shirt in the video. She had a cool shirt.
Yeah, she has the cool. Yeah, we'll have to see if we can go to. Maybe it's probably being sold at the Xbox store. We'll have to check that out. Yeah, Intel so far has never been really a player. I don't even know if they've been considered. Nvidia might be going forward if there are more consoles following this, but just the way that Intel works, the heating, the cooling, the power, the inability to create a GPU worth its gaming prowess, we've never really had the threat of Intel. But for AMD though, this idea of they're continuing it was nice. It's good. What it does hint at is that we're at least going to get one more console, as far as traditional consoles are concerned, a box that you put under your TV, next to your TV, on top of your TV, wherever you put your box at. But I think what was more revealing was that Sarah Bond, I think is her name, did say handhelds. This is a thing, and it isn't necessarily just about partners having handhelds. I think this is more of a direct thing. We know that Microsoft was already working on theirs. They pull people off of it to work on the software to help their partners first, but they're going to get back to it. They're going to get back in the lab and say, hey, here's our handheld. And that the idea that they're putting AMD in there is huge. Now, we don't know what Qualcomm is coming up. We'll find out in September if they'll have a GPU that's worth putting into a handheld and worth competing with and putting in to Windows PCs. But it looks like for the foreseeable future, we're going to get an AMD handheld probably out of the gate, and that's pretty good. Intel, I think I have an Intel version with the Lenovo Legion Go S, which it's good. It does what it needs to do, but I think AMD is better. The other thing that we got was some news followed up the feature. I think it's Lisa Su, chair the executive officer of AMD, who teased the company's upcoming chips for Microsoft Xbox systems. Moving forward, AMD will go beyond building custom chips for Xbox consoles to designing a full roadmap of gaming optimized chips, combining the power of Ryzen and Radeon for consoles, handhelds, PCs, and the cloud. She said, there's also a separate post from Jack Huynh, I believe that's how you say Huynh, who's the senior vice president and general manager of AMD's computing and graphics group, who hinted at a seamless pick up where you left off experience of Microsoft's next-gen gaming devices. He suggested that the partnership between AMD and Microsoft aims to make the boundary between player and experience disappear with the game that remembers where you left off no matter where you play. This is huge because this is what SteamOS has gotten, at least at the operating system level, down. if you played any SteamOS or the Steam Deck or whatnot, you're able to just basically turn it off, pause it or whatnot, and it picks right back up in game. For the most part, Microsoft does keep a state of remembrance of where your windows are at and what you were doing, but not necessarily in game. Sometimes it will, unfortunately restart for updates or time out for some certain things. So you could pause a game, go away for a day or two, and come back, and that the app is already closed itself somehow. And you're like, well, what just happened? Which means that if it doesn't have automatic saving, you could potentially lose where you're at. And again, this has been one of the criticisms of the Xbox experience on handhelds. This idea of being able to just pick right back up where you leave off is huge and could, really make handhelds easier to operate with and kind of play. And I think the Nintendo Switch does something very similar to this already. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing the quick resume, come out, because right now on the Xbox, that's kind of, if you kind of read between the lines, that's partly powered due to specialized storage in the new Xbox of how that quick resume works. Because when you read the product description for the storage cards that go in the back of your console, it says, this is for your quick resume feature. So that's part of the reason why you cannot play your games off of an external hard drive. So I'm ready to see this come out. I am also ready to see what AMD is going to do next. I saw something yesterday involving AMD that let me make sure I get this right. The Lenovo Legion Go 2 is powered by the AMD Extreme 2, which is the same chip that is in the Xbox handhelds. And saw some rumors yesterday that that's September-ish. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm glad to see that AMD is shoulders deep in the gaming community.
Yeah. That being said, let's move on to our next story, which is, make sure I get this right, Windows Hello being changed. And some of you might be asking, what does that mean? For those of you who use Windows Hello facial recognition, now the fingerprint, just fine. But for facial recognition, that was turned off recently. And Microsoft basically had a security reason for doing so, but didn't tell anybody. So there were some of us for a couple of days that were just wondering why during the evening or in low lit areas, dark areas, you had to always enter with your PIN. It just couldn't recognize your face, even though the webcam was working just fine. Users of Windows Hello recently noticed a significant change in its facial recognition performance, particularly in low light environments. If you find that your device no longer logs you in seamlessly in the dark, it's not your fault. It's not even the hardware's fault. The system now requires input from standard color webcams in addition to IR sensors to authenticate users. The change was prompted by a discovery of a potential spoofing vulnerability. Basically, hackers could add shadows and shading to images, I believe 2D images, if not, 2D images to mimic faces in the dark and get logins into people's systems. It's an arduous task. I mean, you'd have to have hours upon hours to kind of get the lighting and stuff correct in order to do it. But Microsoft felt nonetheless it was a vulnerability. It decided to quietly remove it in a recent update. I wrote about it in a particular way of the idea of Microsoft not informing the users about it. Windows Central was one of the first publications to kind of hint at it as well as report it. We both of us followed security patch documentations to, obviously find out the exact wording for it. The reporting was crucial in clarifying that this was an intentional change by Microsoft, not a widespread bug. While the security enhancements is a welcome development, the lack of direct communication, again, this wasn't like Microsoft offered a prompt somewhere in Windows saying, hey, due to security reasons, we will no longer be initiating Windows Hello facial recognition in low light environments. Please advise going forward. They just take it out. So lots of people were wondering what was going on. And if you're less tech savvy or less curious in general, you might think your system is broken. You go out and buy yourself a Windows or Surface Pro 12 or whatever the thing is called, the most recent Surface device. It was working for a few months. Now all of a sudden at night, you're not putting two together. You're just seeing like, hey, sometimes during the day, Windows Hello works just fine. When I get into low light environments, it's not working. What's wrong with my system? Is the webcam broken? Is the operating system? Do I need to restart it? Do I need to reset it? Do I need to clear and wipe it to get it to work in these environments if I'm constantly using it in low light? None of that was explained. Now, I'm going to try and give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, they're going to offer a more coherent reasoning in the future when they have the big Windows update in the fall. And say, hey, part of this update is that we're changing how Windows Hello works at night, but this is for now. They just had to get it out in order to avoid potential lawsuits for anybody who gets hacked. What are your thoughts on Microsoft? One, making the change. Two, not telling really anybody in any formal way. Like, yeah, there's the release notes and patches, but if you're just a common user, you don't know that.
Anything, and I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to security. Anything involving security should be relayed to the user. If you're losing a feature because of security, relay it to the user. I commit, some people would say, like you said, it takes quite a bit of time to make all this work. Somebody break into somebody's computer, and some people out there saying, well, why is it worth it? Why do you do this when it can only happen in certain situations? I disagree, because just like we're, may discuss later, anything with security is important. Microsoft should have come out with what they always do, one of their security bulletins, and allowed websites like ours to post it when we're scouring the daily news and says, hey, Microsoft has discovered a potential security issue in Windows Hello, and here's what they're doing. And here for a little while, your Windows Hello may not work correctly while they work on the situation. And not working in low light conditions for me is not really a problem. I don't think that's a problem for a lot of people. I think most people using their computers in low light conditions have got backlit keyboards and are expecting to enter their PIN or, to get into their PC anyway. I think Microsoft should have been a lot more upfront about it. Is it a big deal? Debatable. Is it something that could affect your PC? Let's take another route. The janitor in your company is cleaning at night, and the janitor is tech savvy, and the janitor knows your computer might have some sensitive information on it, and your laptop is sitting there. So the janitor opens your laptop, and instead of cleaning that night, they find their way into your laptop and get a hold of your company financials, your company data, your personal emails, your corporate emails. They know who's going to get hired. They know who's going to get fired. They know company layoffs are coming, and suddenly that information makes its way around the company. And guess who's going to take the fall for that? You, because that was your laptop. It's never, if Microsoft doesn't come out with this, well, how did they get in? We don't know. So, Kareem, why did you let the janitor get into your laptop to get this information? What was insecure? I don't know. When all the time it was Windows Hello and the janitor had it figured out, and Microsoft didn't tell anybody about it. So not cool.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to try to give the benefit of that. I'm happy that they, move quickly to address this. But I would also hope that they will have some sort of formal explanation for this and letting people know, hey, Windows Hello isn't broken. It's even more secure, and this is why we did this change. With that being said, we're going to move into more communications, not the ones that people really like, though. Microsoft's got another round of layoffs on the way. We wrote about this earlier this week, and this is not a repeat of the 600 people that were originally let go. This is more about, I think this is going to be in the thousands, if I'm not mistaken. And again, we usually say that Microsoft typically, at least for the last few years, have let people go in these sort of numbers, usually in January and July, for the 6-month periods or whatnot. And it coincides with their quarterly earnings and annual reports in order to dump certain amounts of pay and have it not affect the books so much. But there's been reporting that Microsoft's preparing for more significant layoffs, particularly in the sales and customer-facing divisions following their earlier cuts in product and engineering. Those are the 600 that were gone. This indicates a direct and more aggressive approach to workforce recalibration, including a move towards outsourcing more software sales. And it seems like if you're in Microsoft's sales department, it's becoming harder and harder, at least from what I've been told and what I've been seeing, to kind of not be fired because of the way the demands that Microsoft's imposing on some of these people and the turnover rate for some of this stuff. In comparison, or juxtaposed to this, we also have Google's more nuanced approach to this, and there seems to be a more softer but longer-tailed version of this. They are basically implementing back to work or back to the office 5 days a week policies in conjunction with certain payouts who don't want to do that. Their return to office mandate may help push a lot of people off the employment edge if that's something you really valued since the pandemic over the years. Microsoft saying, hey, we don't care if you come back to work. When you get back here, here's a box, empty your desk. Unfortunately, some of this is also being led by, and I believe this is also in Microsoft's case, AI. Yeah, the dreaded AI we talked about earlier at the beginning of this podcast seems to be coming for even people in Microsoft's job. It's crazy. You build the AI, and then it stabs you in the back by taking your job. It looks like Microsoft is also joining the trend of having some of the software engineering done by AI. So they are letting go of those painfully expensive software human engineers to basically automate their workforce systems. Now, we don't know officially. This hasn't been. There's no memo been sent yet. We don't know when and if this is going to happen, but it seems like there are early reports, and the reports are coming from Bloomberg that again, Microsoft's gearing up to take on a massive restructuring of the sales division and teams, as well as offload some software engineering to AI. What are your thoughts on this much larger cutting of people?
Microsoft, just stop. And that's kind of a blunt, maybe even sounds uneducated opinion, but over the past 18 months, I don't know the exact number that they have, laid off or let go or whatever, but it seems like we're talking about it about every 6 to 8 weeks of this group's getting reorganized, that group's getting reorganized. Thousands are laying off over here. Thousands are laying off over there. Somebody just needs to come out and say it. AI is taking people's jobs. And then, we need to come out and say it again. AI is expensive. It's not doing everything we want it to do. So we're getting rid of people to make our investors happy so we can fix the numbers on the bottom of the sheet. I think, companies need to just come out and say, hey, you don't have to come out that bluntly about it. You can say, hey, make it sound good. Get your financial officer to write it up or your PR person to write it up. We overspent on AI. We over anticipated people's use, the use case. We over anticipated how many people would use it. We over anticipated even how much to charge for it. But this whole attitude of, we're almost $1 trillion company, and every 6 weeks we've got to cut people. I'm just starting to get a bad taste in my mouth about it. And I don't mean to sound terse or rough about it, but Google did it last week with the volunteer to get laid off. Then Microsoft is doing it this week. And if you remember, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had another story about Microsoft laying off a different group of people. Companies just say, hey, we're going through transition. We made some mistakes. nobody's going to kill you for coming out and being honest about it. It's, because it kind of, our stories here kind of fit together. The Slack story, we know companies will want to shove AI into everything we can because they need to make that money. And now they're realizing, we're not going to get that money, or we're not going to get it as fast as we wanted to. We want to keep the investor happy, so let's go dump a few more thousand people to pad the number on the sheet. Let's just be honest. I'm tired of hearing people getting laid off from these trillion-dollar companies. I'm tired of it. Sorry for sounding rude there, but that's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's obviously extrapolating small business to make a point is, can be fraught because the examples aren't exactly the same. But, you have a mom and pop business and they hire employees, enough employees so that they still make a profit off of whatever it is they are selling. And then when the business takes a hit, for whatever reason, gentrification or maybe some other business comes into the market, the better product. The reason you lay off people is because you're still trying to keep margins. The idea that a $1 trillion company is trying to keep margins while laying off a few thousand people or so, those people aren't the difference between $1 trillion and $2 trillion, or even 500 billion and $600 billion, like that, or $100 billion difference. Like those people are what should be relatively insignificant on the budget sheet. The idea of shuffling around money when you made investment that force you to cut off that many people to explain it. That's the bigger question. That is the thing that needs to be addressed. That is the idea that you need to hone in and find out the blame specifically for that, so that it doesn't happen again. So that, to your point, we don't keep hearing stories like this 6 to 8 weeks in intervals. This goes for Apple. This goes for Google. This goes for all of them. This goes for the thousands of people who were laid off at the gaming developer studios and whatnot. Like you guys budgeted too big for these games and don't know where your user base is. You're either not doing that, or your ambitions were too big. I mean, I understand giving people jobs and hoping for the best, but we also need to be realistic about what the outcomes are at the worst and let people know that beforehand. I am tired of the layoff game. Hopefully Microsoft figures it out and we won't have to keep hearing stories about this. Maybe, again, I understand businesses ebbs and flows once a year. Like we said, we used to predict like, hey, in the summer, these sales guys are going to get laid off. It's unfortunate, but it happens. And that was predictable. Now it's January, 600 here in March, another 7,000 in June, and another 10,000 in July, and another 5,000 toward the end of the year. Numbers are becoming more increased and becoming more frequent, and that's never a good sign for the economy or for people in general. Like, these people need to go out and find jobs after this. So hopefully this is just Bloomberg getting it wrong, maybe whiffing. That's the best outcome of this. We got one other story we want to squeeze in real quick because you and I were talking about it off camera. But those of you, this isn't just a Microsoft specific one. This is just a tech one in general. There was a massive data breach of about 16 billion login credentials that was reported by, let me make sure we get this right, Forbes. There was a major platform breach, one of the largest data breaches, according to the Cyber News research firm, of, like I said, 16 billion leaked login credentials, including passwords to Facebook, Google, and Apple accounts. I'm sure Microsoft's in there as well. It was all buried in a massive data set. The number of cybersecurity threats continues to rise, but Cyber News has been looking into the issue since the beginning of the year, discovering 30 exposed data sets containing from tens of millions to over 3.5 billion records each. So this is, apparently been going on for a while, but the largest breach came recently. According to the research team, this is not just a leak, it's a blueprint for massive exploitation. With over 16 billion login records exposed, cyber criminals now have unprecedented access to personal credentials that can be used for account takeover, identity theft, and highly targeted phishing. What's especially concerning is the structure and recency of these data sets. These aren't just old data breaches, so you might get an update from your company that you use logins for that say, hey, change your password. You may have changed it. Unfortunately, it was hacked again, according to some of these data sets. This is fresh. The firm says this is fresh, weaponizable intelligence at scale. The research team revealed the data was packaged as a URL featuring login credentials and a password. They further revealed that the data breach could provide malicious users with access to pretty much any online service imaginable, from Apple, Facebook, Google, to GitHub, Telegram, and various government services. To that end, those behind the data breach remain unknown, which is even scarier, making it impossible to issue action items to wipe the data. You don't even know what they took and what to try to protect going forward right now, because we don't know who has what it is that's been gone. The team also indicated that they could not pinpoint what kind of attack the hackers were planning to deploy with the exposed login credentials at hand. Again, if this is logins to any type of social media that you maybe have purchasing power for, like maybe Instagram, you buy stuff off of Instagram, they may have your login credentials to your banking accounts and whatnot as well. So in the interim, obviously frequently changing your passwords, using up-to-date software, and avoiding suspicious links is your best line of defense. What are your thoughts on this? Because we have a supplemental story about our own U.S. government trying to do essentially a legal hack of our information. But before we get to that, what are your thoughts on the breach?
Sad for one, and two, I'm hoping that this starts to wake people up. These breaches, I'm sure they're happening every day. It's just a matter of what scale do they happen on to get main news coverage. Small companies are getting breached, large companies are getting breached, but how much of it is actually making its way to the press? Of, hey, this company got breached, or hey, your data's out there, unless a user runs up on something and then questions it and says, hey, how did XYZ company get my information here? And then it suddenly makes its way to the news. And I think it's part of a bigger problem. The internet is a place where people like to go and do what they want to do. They like to do it. They like to do it without repercussions. They like to do it without, any checks and balances. And I feel like every time we try to do something to make people responsible or to identify people on the internet when you do things, you get pushback because people want that freedom. So Google, Microsoft, and all these big companies come up with different ways to protect your data. They come up with more complex passwords. They come up with better password managers. They come up with two-factor authentication. All these other tools to try to keep the internet open, wide open, where people can jump in there and do what they want to do. When you start getting your money taken away from you, when you start seeing more identity theft, which, suddenly you look up and you've bought $200,000 cars last night while you were sleeping, and it's on your credit report, and you did it, but you didn't do a thing. You were in your bed sleeping, and you have to start battling that, and it comes more widespread. I don't want that to be what wakes people up. I feel like we've got to get to a point where when you use a device, when you access the internet, there's some type of authentication, some type of identifying information that says, hey, Kareem Anderson, you broke into a store last night and you have a copy of the data. Why do you have that data? And there needs to be a consequence for that person having that data. People are hiding on what we call the dark web. The dark web is not a special place anymore. The dark web is right out there in front of you. People change their identity. They use VPNs. They, show themselves coming from a third party country when they're sitting right next door. And they're able to do these things. It bothers me, kind of like the price increases with AI. And the layoffs, it continues to bother me that we do nothing about this. We see a breach, company comes out, yes, we've took these measures to make sure this doesn't happen again. They send you the pretty letter with it all wrote there with the company letterhead. We hope you don't take your business elsewhere. We've secured it. And then stuff like this comes out.
Well, even
We
scarier
got to
than
do
that.
something.
As I say, even scarier than that, though, is when the government decides to purchase the same sort of information, if not more extensively. I believe back when Biden was in office, the Biden administration, they put into place a process of basically the government buying or allowing intelligence agencies to buy large amounts of sensitive personal data, bypassing the Fourth Amendment, which would typically require a court order. The type of information that they're gathering or data harvesting is, basically tracking things like eye movement, image lingering, and keystroke rhythms offline. They're tapping cameras and stores, loyalty cards, smart devices to collect all kinds of data. And your smart device is basically just a one-stop shop for all kinds of input source collecting, as far as your GPS, your thumbprint, your facial recognition, any of your passwords and logins. It tracks everything essentially. And the sensitive data collection that's collected is highly personal and sensitive, including smartphone location pings, real estate records, biometric data, and social media content. Social media content is probably the scariest part because it isn't just, hey, I have an account in Facebook, I have an account in, it is basically every post that you've had, you've been liked or even viewed, depending on how Facebook tracks viewing. So if you viewed a video, that could be logged under this type of information that the government is collecting. They're using, then they're going to use, because it's, they're just, again, hoovering up swaths of massive amounts of data. They don't even know what to do with it just yet, but they're going to use AI basically to allow law enforcement to run these data, to run all this data set through AI tools for analysis, including sentiment analysis, which is a very bad practice to begin with. The practice the video describes, a practice that is basically known as pseudo-scientific and prone to perpetuating harmful discrimination, because they're basically just saying, a lot of these algorithms are written by a certain cohort of people who aren't the vast majority of users. So if you have young white males building the algorithms, then they have their own inherent, not necessarily overt biases, just because this is the world that they live in, and it becomes biased towards the things that they aren't accounting for. Some of the risk concerned with a lot of this information is basically pre-crime logic, lack of due process, scope creep, insider abuse. Again, government agencies or users, government people that are viewing this could then use it for their own personal recourses. If they, say you broke up with your ex and you really don't like her or like him or her, you use that information you're just happen to come across your desk of theirs and use it for personal, benefits or, to their detriment. Unfortunately, this is politically bipartisan in the U.S. We need a call to action, basically, to say, hey, government, you can't do this. The reason I said this is more scary because, we've seen the CIA kind of collect on domestic citizens or whatnot, is that they're trying to put it into one portal that a lot of these agencies can access. And if we know in anything, we just saw that 16 billion credentials were hacked. It'll be even easier for any state-run actor to get this. If China were to just say, hey, go to that one data set that all the CIA and NSI and all of them log into, just hack that. And they could have everything from every person who has any type of footprint in the US, have all that information. We need legislation for this. We are, to your point, becoming increasingly online. And if this continues, not just from hackers who have to hack different social media in order to get all of your fingerprints, because again, you're here, you're there, they can just hack the one source and get everything. At some point, we're not going to be able to go online.
I'm gonna throw that out there for just a minute. Now, maybe I'm naive here. Maybe I'm missing something. This is just my opinion. We don't hear about hacks in other countries. We don't hear about something being hacked in China, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But what's the difference in the internet in these third-party countries than in the United States. Fortunately or unfortunately, guess what? They are government controlled or have some type of legislation. Now, I'm not saying by any means, before anybody jumps on my back,
don't tread on me.
That we should have a government controlled internet, and you can't go look up anti-political stuff. You can't go look up pornography for those that do it. That's not what I'm saying. But it's free reign. It's the free world. And that's where the internet is. And to your point, if we don't do something, and I don't know what that happy medium is, because we've tried, to bring this up several times over the past 10 or 15 years. I have seen several stories come up. Some come up by the government, some come up by third parties. Let's get some legislation on the internet. It kind of started with the whole net neutrality thing, for those that know what that is. Where everything has to be wide open. You're really not supposed to use filters. You're really not supposed to, block things if you're a provider. You're really just supposed to be dead, open pipes that are dead. Open the pipes, let people use them. You can't do anything about what goes through the pipes because you're looking at people's information, and thus your internet provider is violating security. That's kind of where that got out of sorts. I don't care who sees my information as far if they're trying to make me secure. Because something has got to be shown to identify what needs to be secure. It's kind of how we got these laws over the pornography websites in the last couple years, where if you, in some states, if you visit a pornography website, you have to show proof that you're 18 years old to view that site. Some states did not go along with that. So what do people do? They get a VPN, they put their IP in that state, they go off and they do what they want to do. So we've got to do better at this. Or like you said, there's not going to be an internet to use, and we can't be naive about it and say, well, we've got 10 or 15 years before that gets to that point. No, you may have 10 months. You don't know what happens.
I blame Google because I'm a hater. But I only say that jokingly, but I mostly blame advertising.
I see where you're going with that. I agree.
In this state of trading services and resources for advertising, we've allowed ourselves to be tracked to the extent of the tracking is ridiculous, because just getting our email and our name has never been enough for the buyers, these data brokers, who need to then up the ante in order to justify their having the information to say, hey, I can give you even more if you're willing to pay more. And they'll track, there's websites that are like, we need your location information in order to give you the best possible results and services, as opposed to just saying, hey, I need to know what your email and your phone number is. And if you're not willing to give me that, then that's okay. Just keep searching the site. Instead, they're asking browser, you'll see when you go to a website, can we get your location? Can we get your audio? Can we get your camera and access to your audio? Like, why do you need all this? Just looking for some, USB adapters on Amazon. You don't need everything else. But we've allowed, again, partly on us, we've allowed ourselves to do that in exchange for free stuff. I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, as the economy gets more expensive, people are going to find ways to find their cheapest route to things that are free or less expensive. If we can start to figure out a way to give people a little bit more money and they say, hey, you know what, I'm willing to pay for this service so I don't get any ads. Maybe we can start to curb some of that in addition to legislation that also, to your point, says, hey, you can't track that. We're going to keep this data separate. We're never combining them, because if we do, this becomes a detrimental harm to the user itself. So willing to pay for things, legislation is our way to crawl back some of this. Hopefully we can do it in time. We're going to leave on a happier note, hopefully.
Yes.
And we got some free play stuff this weekend. What do you want to tell the folks?
Yes, we did not leave you folks out that have let me know that you enjoy these free play the free play segments. So we want to end on a happy note here. We've got 4 this week. So let's see. We've got...
You got Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, got a little bit of music. You've got Dead by Daylight. Let's see. You've got... watch me have to pronounce this here. Sindulti Echo of Ada is how I pronounce that. If it needs to be pronounced a different way, somebody please tell me. You've got Trailmakers, which that looked kind of interesting to me. That was kind of a custom mech PvP, and the PvP had just been added to that, so make sure you check that one out. We mentioned Dead by Daylight, and there's one in here that I'm missing somewhere. Oh, the music one. How can I miss the music one? Headbangers Rhythm Battle Royal. I got a kick out.
That's a hell of a title.
I got a kick out of reading that title, folks. Kind of, a music competition game, a game where you and 20 other pigeons compete. You customize your pigeon with hundreds of unique items to enjoy during your mini music game. So it's you and the pigeons. I hope you folks are ready for this. Now, as usual, the free play games are discounted. We've got Dead by Daylight is just $11.99. I did Dead by Daylight, it's $11.99. We've got Trailmakers at $14.99. And we have, I got to say it again, Sindulti Echo of Ada is $29.99, and the Battle Royal is just the $3.99. So we got a little bit of everything for everybody. I may try out all 4 of these. I've got to see, number 1, Dead by Daylight looks interesting to me in general. This whole Trailmaker thing, I kind of want to see what that's about. The Headbangers Rhythm Battle Royal, I've got to be with a pigeon. I want to see what this is. When you tell me it's me and 20 other pigeons, I've got to see what this is. That just kind of says, look, I've got to go check it out. I will probably end up buying something like that because I'm guessing it might be more of a little kid game. You might see something that kids are interested in. I don't know that, adults are too interested in music and pigeons. So I'm kind of interested to see what age range this game falls in. So you can play these from Thursday night, which was last night, Thursday night at midnight till Sunday at midnight. And remember if you're interested, to buy these during the free play days. They're quite a bit cheaper. All of the games had 3 to 5 stars or 4 to 5 stars. So, gamers that have played them, they looked interesting. My friend, which one looks interesting to you? I want to go to your house this weekend and see you with the headbanging penguins. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure you can. I mean, it seems like the headbanging pigeon one's very much like Guitar Hero in that aspect of like
that's what I was thinking
/ planning. So if you're into those type of games, that's one to get into. I'm looking at the trailer right now. We're kind of playing it as this Trailmaker, which is the mech thing. I've always been into mechs since I was a Voltron kid.
I have too.
So I may end up probably going for that one first. I'm still currently trying to finish up Shadow of Mordor. It's such a sprawling game, so much to do. So I'll be playing quite a bit, actually. I'm not fortunate I'll be here in my house this weekend. No traveling, really. I think my girls have a birthday party that they'll be at. So I have some time to kind of play some of this stuff and get into it. So again, you can feel free to contact me at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky if you want to hop online. If there's anything you guys recommend that I play or watch on Twitch or anything like that, also, again, give me some recommendations there. Where can people find you if they want to talk to you this weekend?
David PHA 1978. I'm over on the Blue Sky. I'm not on the Elon powered platform. So David PHA 1978, come over there, say hello, and let me know if you like the headbanging with the pigeons, or if you're like Kareem and myself, you prefer the mech games. I will throw it out there that the title that I will always remember the first one I played with Xbox Live and got totally addicted to was Mech Assault. And I've always been deep into anything mech related. I have played Mech Warrior 5. So yeah, I'm going to have to jump on that one this weekend.
With that being said, we're going to thank you guys for hanging out with us for another episode of the Unboxed Pod. Again, we hope we didn't leave you too depressed. Go out and get offline. There you go. That may be your solution to this. Go out and enjoy yourself a hot dog, listen to some music, go for a bike ride, just have a conversation, go for a walk your dog, pet your cat even more. Just enjoy being offline if you can. And when you're ready to come back online, we will be here with more information and more news next week. So take care, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Azure skies where spirits stall. In the cloud we stand tall.